The MCU is quickly expanding, with heroes popping up all over the place, with Phase 4 and Phase 5 looking to introduce several new heroes, and those heroes will obviously come with some villains. Hello everyone, and welcome to my secret base. My name is Edster, and in today's video I will go over 5 villains that could join the MCU in the near future. Before we begin, take a few seconds to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. Alright, let's get started. Let's begin with a villain familiar to those that play the Avengers game, and that is MODOK. There have been rumors of MODOK joining the MCU for a while, with the biggest rumor being that Armin Zola will come back as the infamous villain. Whether it is Zola or someone else, I think that we'll be seeing the villain introduced in Phase 4 and then featured heavily in Phase 5. AIM, which is the organization that MODOK leads, was introduced in Iron Man 3. However, its leader, Aldrich Killian, was killed during the events of that film. With Killian gone, AIM surely had to replace him with someone else, and I actually don't think it's Zola. I think in the future we will see George Stolten introduced, probably pre-MODOK, and eventually will become the villain later on. In my mind, that will probably happen or be hinted at in either the events of She-Hulk or in the Spider-Man franchise. This will lead to him probably becoming the reason why the Avengers reassembled. Norman Osborn is one of the best villains in Marvel history. Not only is he Spider-Man's greatest villain, but he has also evolved to be one of the Avengers' greatest villains as well. And I do expect him to be introduced in the next Spider-Man movie. However, I don't think he's going to be a main character. He will likely be a side character whose importance will grow between appearances, eventually becoming Spider-Man's biggest nemesis and then eventually grow to become an Avengers level threat. He will undoubtedly become one of the most important characters in the MCU, and we'll likely see him recruit the Sinister Six, similar to how Nick Fury recruited the Avengers, possibly popping up in Phase 4 and 5 post-credit scenes after failing to defeat Spidey as the Green Goblin. Annihilus has been hinted at in some ways throughout the MCU, more specifically in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. I think he will be more heavily hinted at in the next Guardians, whenever that comes out, and will probably be heavily featured after Phase 5, likely as the Avengers' biggest threat since the Mad Titan himself, or Kang the Conqueror if he's really going to be introduced in the next Ant-Man. I mean, unless they do Kang as one and done. I think the next Ant-Man film, by the way, will introduce the Negative Zone, which will serve as a plot device for several movies going forward, very likely for the Fantastic Four once they're introduced. Following up from what I just said, the Fantastic Four will likely be introduced within the next few phases, very likely to be hinted at in Phase 4 and then introduced in Phase 5, with Doctor Doom being introduced alongside them. From there, he will likely play a pivotal role within the Fantastic Four, though, as I mentioned in my first video, he will likely not be their first villain, but eventually go toe-to-toe with the Fantastic Four after the first movie. After his battles against Marvel's first family, Doom will likely start popping up to fight other heroes such as Doctor Strange. I mean, due to Doom also being a sorcerer, and actually a more powerful sorcerer than the Sorcerer Supreme, perhaps we could even see him team up with the evil Norman Osborn in order to take down the Avengers, likely if his plan to use the Sinister Six fails to do so, but I'm only speculating. Alright, and lastly, this one's going to be a bit convoluted, but I believe that Magneto will be revealed to be Scarlet Witch's father, with the caveat that he, like the Winter Soldier, was frozen in time, with him having kids after escaping and then once again getting caught before his kids are born. My theory is that mutants have always existed, but they are so far in between that they are hardly noticeable. Until Scarlet Witch does the reverse House of M at the end of either WandaVision or Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, awakening the mutant gene in a lot of people. Anyway, I believe that he will be hinted at in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and revealed later on, maybe in the post-credit scene of that movie or the post-credit scene of another. He will likely create the Brotherhood once he sees how mutants are being treated after they start popping up. By this point, the X-Men will also be established and he will likely become the antagonist to Charles Xavier. I do think that his role will quickly evolve into an anti-hero, and the general public will likely react to him the same way that people reacted to Killmonger after Black Panther came out. Regardless of everything, I just cannot wait to see Magneto in the MCU. Well, that is all for this week. Which villains do you see joining the MCU in the near future? Which phase will introduce the most villains, 4 or 5? Let me know in the comments below. Also, take a look at some of my additional content on the screen right now and like me on Facebook. The link is in the description. See ya!